find a synopsis for this movie that I suggested.
Look up the Wikipedia article.
Look up the Wikipedia.
Look up the Wikipedia article. Have notes on the movie we're actually talking about today?
I know, but I remember it better.
This potato
Well, I
keeps making appearances.
Or now you guys remember it even better than me.
Yeah, we literally just watched it.
just came off of watching it.
It's like the first time. I mean, we've watched or played things as prep for this, but never like immediately before recording.
Right. There'll be like a lot of things happened, and it
Mhm.
all happened at a. No, we can talk about that specifically in the podcast,
In the podcast.
in the actual episode analysis.
Well,
In the knowledge.
Are we recording right now?
yes, we are.
Oh.
In the Nalgene.
Oh.
Well, stop.
My waves are much smaller than his.
Well, maybe we should.
Like you are also A, farther away from the microphone. B, you have a generally quieter voice.
Well, that too. But I was gonna say get some
Sit
packing
closer
tape.
to the microphone, son.
No.
No, not packing tape.
Oh, jeez.
No.
Oh, that's better.
Is it? Should it be breaking out through the walls?
If it's hitting that yellow, it's
windows.
about right.
The yellow.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
I see.
little thing
Oh,
on the
over
side.
there.
If it's
I was
red,
like,
then
it's all red. Oh no.
you don't
I
want
can't
red.
see that monitor. You have a different landscape on every monitor.
See, before it was all fantastic, Mr. Fox, and then my computer updated, and now every monitor has a different picture.
You know, I was wondering about that yesterday or whatever other day I was here.
It's like I didn't go through and pick all of these.
Yeah, I was like,
it's just
wow.
random.
These are all places he's been.
No,
Or something.
These are stock pictures. Do you think I would just go to a random wheat field and take a picture? Ben, maybe,
Yes.
but not me. Well, okay, maybe I would if I thought it looked.
If
cool.
you were with Ben on
Yeah,
your,
right,
on the
yeah,
wheat
and I
field
also had a
adventure.
camera.
If you've been with Ben,
Bean with Bean,
Bean.
Is he one of our listeners?
I don't think so.
Probably not.
Well, probably not for a lack of desire, but just
Sure,
because of a lack of.
given his internet scenario.
Well, yeah, I don't even know if he has internet at his house, and most of the time he's at his house, he's trying to remodel it. So
Sure.
Sure.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
do you like
So-
the potato?
Who's am I still giving the
Yes,
the
you are
synopsis?
Riley substitute again.
Okay.
That
Yeah,
is
you're-
like your
you're,
job
You're taking
title.
charge. You pick the thing. You talk about the thing. That's how it works.
All right, I'm going to need assistance with it, but
We'll
yes.
occasionally jump in to clarify details.
Okay.
I mean, I'm
the-
going to need some details clarified because it's still like
We'll talk.
we'll
about
talk
it.
about
Talk
it.
about
but
it. Why are we
talk
talking about
about
what we're talking about
No,
before we're
we're-
supposed to
this
talk
is
about
still-
it? This
this
is
is
the
still-
funny, witty banter bit.
Yeah,
This is where we
are not even close to ready to start.
Is
the
this the
podcast.
banter bit, or is this just us
Or is this-
testing the microphones for a long
No,
time?
this is the banter bit. Sometimes, like the microphone test, just goes naturally into the banter bit.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice.
This is totally natural now that we're talking about it.
Yes, we're talking about how funny and witty we are.
Oh, how about this weather?
Wait a minute.
It's snowing.
It is actually kind of pretty outside,
It is.
It's
very
like
nice.
Christmas.
but
Christmas.
it's ordinary time now
Yeah.
as we're recording this.
Yeah.
We just took the Christmas tree down the other day.
Every year when we get done with all the purple and the
Purple.
white and the one day of rose,
Oh yeah,
and then all of a sudden it's green.
green and then
And I'm
purple
like-
again.
Whoa, green.
Green,
And then it goes back to purple. I'm like, oh, phew, that's better.
Yeah. I thought we were not in a special liturgical season there for a second. And then
I'd
it's
be
like
worried.
gold for like 2 months.
Gold.
Yeah, or white for Easter.
There's no such thing as gold.
There is actually.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a color. Most priests just wear white though,
Hmm.
with gold trimming. But gold vestments are a thing.
Oh.
Usually you don't see them in like regular old masses, but
I see.
I can see clearly now the rain is... Well, it did rain the other week. This winter is like, normal winters. That's not me.
Yeah.
I'm not like other winters.
I feel like the winters in the last
They're never the
decade
same.
have never been the same.
No two winters are the same in any part of the world, but particularly this part of the world. But,
So what's up with this potato?
okay, so our roommate decided
Audibly
one day
holding
when
a
we were
potato.
watching, audibly holding potato with eyes on it. Our roommate
Well, all
decided
potatoes
one day,
have eyes, but this
Right,
one
but
has
this one is like-
drawn cartoon eyeballs.
Right, yeah. So one day, our roommate decided that he wanted to play with the potato while he was watching a movie with us, and it
Okay.
just sort of
Just,
stayed
like,
on the
fidget with
coffee
it.
table. And then our other roommate's girlfriend, or fiance, I guess, was like, "Oh, look at this little potato. I'm going to put eyes on it and stick it in random places, like in front of James's bedroom door where he'll almost step on it, or on his computer desk keyboard, just to mess with him." And it was like, I appreciate the gesture, but we need to eat this potato.
It's going to rot.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to have a rotten potato, especially if it's like late at night and I'm going to bed and I step on a rotten potato. That is not Happy James hours.
Happy James hours.
Because there's cleaning up a mess, and then there's cleaning up a mess when you're really tired and kind of cranky. And those are two very
Well,
different.
you may not have been cranky before, but after you have to clean up a mess and you're tired, then you're cranky.
Yeah, old Crank's workshop.
Frank's
guy-
word.
It's like an old YouTube thing making fun of old Yanks workshop or something like that, or like some home improvement show or whatever
Sure.
my dad used to watch. And then my brothers found this parody where this guy's just constantly drinking beer. It's like, I'm gonna make a coffee table out of beer cans, and that makes me cranky. And so instead of building something, he just like drinks a ton of beers and passes out.
Beers.
Not advocating alcoholism, but that was sort of the bit.
That was sort of a bit.
I bet.
Speaking of bits,
Are we transitioning?
No. What about bits? You ride
your
horses?
glasses are empty.
Oh. Because
Well-
I drank the whiskey the other night.
Yeah.
We're recording on an abnormal day.
At an
Abnormal.
abnormal time.
Abby Normal. Oh, we should do that movie.
What? That's a movie?
Oh no, Abby.
Forward?
What?
Abby Normal. Abby Abnormal.
What movie is that?
Abnormal.
It's-
Oh, is that Dead and Loving? No.
No.
That's Young Frankenstein.
Yep.
Oh.
You got an abnormal brain. That's what it was.
Yeah.
I've only seen like half of that movie.
Yeah.
Abby Normal.
The only what's his face? Mel Blanc movies I've seen.
Not Mel Blanc.
No,
Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
Mel
the
Mel
other-
Blanc
Gibson.
is Mel
Bugs Bunny,
He's
the
Bugs
Looney
Bunny
Tunes
and
guy.
all the guys.
The only Mel Brooks movies I've seen are Men in Tights, Blazing Saddles, and Spaceballs.
I'm sorry.
I don't know. Spaceballs is definitely the best one, but
If that's the best. Oof.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
I had fun
they're
with
supposed to be dumb. That's the
it.
thing.
Yeah.
That's my take.
I
on
didn't
Mel
really like
Brooks.
Blazing Saddles was a little too slow for me.
And racist.
Yeah, well, that was the whole point.
That was the joke.
Yeah, that was the joke.
Yeah.
A black sheriff. All right, we'll take the Irish.
We'll take
So no,
the
I've seen
Irish.
Spaceballs, Dead and Loving It, his Dracula parody, and half of Young Frankenstein.
Gotcha. I didn't really care for Men in Tights that much because it was basically one long innuendo of a movie. I was like, okay, this is getting old. But some of the parts with what was it? Because Carrie Elwes was Robin, who's also Wesley in Princess Bride. Go listen to that episode. And what was the name of the Dave Chappelle? Was that Dave Chappelle or as not Blinken? That's the blind guy.
Blinken.
Blinken.
What was the name of Achu?
Oh.
The
Gesundheit.
Right. No, his dad's name was I Sneeze, and his name is
Gesundheit.
Achu.
Oh,
Bless you. I'm trying to remember. It's one of the Chappelles, I want to say. Or no, it was
I
that-
don't know.
I don't
Hold
know.
on. Now I
haven't
need to
seen
look
this
this
movie.
up.
Now we need to
Typing.
audible typing.
He's typing.
Actually,
I have a
less
quieter
audible.
keyboard right now
Oh.
because my fingers got tired from the mechanical keyboard.
From lifting up so high to push things
I
down.
know. This isn't the best postured desk in the world.
It
Let's
is
see.
kind of high, isn't it?
It is. Well, it's a table,
Yeah.
not really a desk. It works great for like doing homework, which it used to be in the library at the Newman Center. What is the name of the movie? Okay, Men in Tights.
I'm now going to do the finger snap thing whenever someone says back in the Newman Center.
Oh yeah,
Finger
I thought that was
snapping?
exclusively
Like
for high
I don't
school.
the one thing you do for high school, but now for the Newman.
Well, I didn't
Center.
go to high school.
Wasn't that like the marching band thing to do?
Yeah,
Like the finger
it's the
snap?
trumpet
That's
thing.
why Riley does it all
For,
the
for,
time.
for context, I was homeschooled, so
Right. Well, so was I. But I know
right,
that.
right. I was just like somebody listening and me like, you didn't go to high school, dropout. But I'm also a college student. So.
I am the only one on this podcast who wasn't homeschooled.
Right.
Well, other than Riley.
No, Riley.
But
Currently,
not
on
currently.
this episode that you're listening to.
Yes. I'm not paying attention. Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, we could say anything, and then James will go along with it.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah, it was Dave Chappelle.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
I
for
just
that
wanted to confirm.
long
You have
confirmation.
closure finally
I
at
do.
long last. Now can you rest at peace?
Speaking of closure,
And at long last, we're the Palladian Papists. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
I'm John.
Today, what are we talking about today, John?
We're talking about
Riley's seminary book.
Howell's
Doing those
Riley's seminary book.
He's off busy doing a retreat or something.
Be
Anyway,
in seminary.
We're-
Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah, we're talking about Howell's Moving Castle.
Tell us about the moving castle. of
Well,
Howl.
it's Howell's and it moves.
And it's a castle.
The end.
Barely a castle.
See you
I don't-
guys.
No,
It,
it's-
only kind of qualifies. It's more a
Yeah.
shack.
Well,
It's-
It's more castle-y in the book.
it on the front cover of the
Front
book.
cover it is.
if you look at the front cover of this lovely book I have, it's more castle-y.
Oh.
In the movie we watched by Studio Ghibli, it's a bit
that
more
how
of
you
a
pronounce that?
hodgepodge slapped together like steampunk shack,
Yeah.
but also it's really
Well, it's more interesting to animate that way.
well, yes, obviously, and it kind of fits into the.
Yeah, I really like the.
Anyway, let's talk about what this
Moving
movie
on.
is.
We can talk about the style.
All
and
right.
substance.
So Howell's Moving Castle is a story about a
Down a
girl,
river and a down the hole. Sorry. Yep.
named Sophie,
Yep.
and she is a girl.
Indeed, a girl.
She lives in a town named
I don't
something.
know if they ever say the name of the town.
They
Not
say
in
it in the
movie,
book,
in the movie, but I'm sure in the
She
but
book.
I'm gonna
lives
say
in-
it.
a town,
In the land of Ingary is
Oh.
Angry.
where they are.
Angry. but-
Anyway,
They didn't give any proper names for most of the places in the movie. Just
I mean,
kinda
for the
like-
movie, it wasn't really all that important, but we'll get to that.
anyway, so Sophie, the main character, is the eldest of 3 daughters, and runs or works in a hat shop which her father had owned until he had recently passed away. And so now her mother is in charge, and she works in the back and makes hats all day and then talks to them. So
Talks to the hats.
she talks to the hats. I think
Oh.
they kind of do that in the movie.
Not
Not
really.
really.
Okay.
She just kind of worked on them.
Well, anyway, we're talking about the movie, not the book. So
So put the book down.
I'm putting the book down.
Set the book down, John. I only
Um,
read the first chapter anyway.
so Sophie's kind of a mild-mannered girl, and she kind of dresses drably and doesn't.
Wears a plain hat, even
Yeah.
though she makes fancy hats for a living.
Yeah, she makes very fancy hats, and a lot of very fancy people come into her shop, and she chooses to wear a
Just a plain dress and a little straw hat.
yeah.
Just the most basic.
Mm-hmm. And so she at the beginning of the movie, you see her in the shop, and she's doing her hats, and she moves on, or no,
She the store closes, so
The
she
store
locks
closes.
up and goes to the bakery to visit
Well,
her sister.
right?
Yeah.
She
Yep.
goes
Well,
to
she's
see.
headed to the bakery.
So what's happening right now in the town? There's like a big festival going on in the town right now.
Military parade. There's soldiers all over the place.
Yeah. And so she goes, she hasn't seen her sister in a while, so she goes to visit her sister. And as she's walking down to see her sister, there's rumors of, back context. So there's rumors of this wizard named Howl who lives in the wastes. And he has a moving castle, not a cowl. He's not Batman.
Mm-mm.
Howl's
Well, he is, but
moving cat.
It's Christian Bale. At one point, he talks like this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
it's
when
Christian
he's,
Bale.
spoilers for later, when he's full monster bird, he kind of talks like he's Batman.
Oh,
Batman. Oh, hey, look, it's Batman.
Hey, look, it's a Batman actor playing a Birdman.
Birdman.
That's the
But
second
it's
one.
not. It's not Kevin Costner.
Oh, it's not Kevin
No,
Costner.
no, no. It's not Kevin Costner for sure. It's what the I can't remember his name. Vulture. All the other Batman.
Not all the other Batman.
No, but other Batman. Like, dang it! Why can I not remember this guy's
I don't
name?
know.
I'm bad with names also.
We should
Dang it.
we should get back to the
Keep
plot.
talking, John. I'll blurt it out when I
All
remember.
right, we're getting back to the plot. So there's rumor of this wizard who lives in the wastes, and he has the moving castle.
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton. That's what it was.
And everybody knows about. So in this world, wizardry and magic and witches are just a thing.
Yeah, it's not medieval times. It's kind of sort of like got this aesthetic. Like it's
like
a little steampunk, but
steampunk.
it's like late 1800s, early
It's like
1900s
an early,
sort
late
of
industrial
aesthetic.
revolution steampunk.
Yeah,
So it's like transitioning between full weird techie steampunk and industrial revolution. somewhere in the
vaguely
middle.
like it's got sort of like a look like it's one of the countries along the Alps, like maybe like France or Italy or Austria or something
Yeah.
like that. Sort of an aesthetic to it.
Yeah. And so there's rumor of Wizard Howl, who lives in the wastes, and everyone can see his castle. Everyone knows about his castle, and they see it. It just walks around.
It's big.
It's big, and it walks around in the wastes, and you can see it from town from time to time. It doesn't go in town, but you can see it from town. And the rumor is that Howl at night will come down to the town and steal pretty girls who are walking by themselves. And so Sophie, after she's done in the hat shop, she goes to visit her sister. She's walking down the street, and she starts getting heckled by these guards that are part of the festival.
Mhm.
And she tries to get away from them, but they don't let her go. And then all of a sudden, this strange man with blonde hair and a great poofy coat, who he doesn't put his arms in the sleeves,
Mhm.
shows up, and he says, "Are these people bothering you?" And she's like, "No."
These guys bothering you, miss?
Yeah. And so he helps her get away from them, and then all of a sudden he starts using magic, and she's
Like I'm being followed by these weird blob people.
oh
Blood
yeah,
people with tiny straw hats, and
oh
it's
yeah,
very funny.
blob people start showing up, and he's like, "Just act natural, we're being followed." And then all of a sudden blob people just start coming at them, and he's kind of calm, guiding her along down the streets, and all of a sudden he uses his magic, and then they're flying, and they're just walking in the air, and he lets her down at the top of the balcony of the bake shop that her sister works at, and then he goes away. And
She talks to her sister for a little bit, and she's like, you don't have to work at the hat shop. You can live your own life and do your own thing. And Sophie's just kind of like, no, I'm cool.
yeah, and so she's done with her. They talk about the wizard.
Yeah,
Too.
they touch a little
yeah.
bit on
She's
the
like,
And-
wizard
she
thing
steals
where
women. He steals women's hearts.
Yeah, and then
She's
she
like, it's only pretty women's hearts. I'm
Yeah.
okay, sister.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, she has the attitude of, well, I don't have to worry about
She
him
doesn't think she's that pretty.
because I'm not that pretty, and so I don't have to worry about him stealing my heart.
Mhm.
So she doesn't have a lot of self-esteem, good self-esteem
She's
of
not very
herself.
comfortable with herself.
Yeah. So then later that night she goes back, and is it right that night?
Yeah, right that night
Yeah.
she goes back to the hat shop, closes it
Yeah.
up, and is about to head to bed.
Hmm. And then so there's a customer that comes in, just an older lady comes in, and she starts talking with her, and Sophie tells her, "You can't be in here. We're closed. Please leave." And it turns out that this is the Witch of the Wastes, who is
Sorceress, basically.
yeah, she's a sorceress. She's a witch, and she's very well known in that town because she's
That's kind of like a local legend, kind of.
yeah.
Same
'Cause
thing as
she's-
Howl. Like the people aren't really all that trustful of like wizards or witches or anything.
Which,
like
Right.
in the case of the Witch of the Wastes, that
justified.
mistrust is justified because she right before she leaves, she casts a curse
Yeah.
on Sophie.
So she's
that she can't. And the part of the curse is she can't tell people about the curse.
yeah. So she
Rule number 1 of the curse: you don't talk about the
you
curse.
don't talk about the curse. Yeah. So she gets the Witch of the Waste is leaving the shop. She casts a spell on Sophie, and so Sophie doesn't think anything happened, but then she looks in the mirror and she's been turned into an old woman. And so she freaks out for a bit. She's like, "Oh, it's fine. It's just a dream. This isn't really happening. I just need to go to bed." She goes to bed, wakes up. She's still old.
Mm-hmm.
And then the hat shop is really busy the next day, and her mother comes up and asks her, "Sophie, it's time to
what's
work.
going on?
Why are you still in bed?" And she's like, "I've got a cold." And she's like, "You sound like an old woman." And
she sneaks out. She gets dressed, sneaks out of the house.
Yeah.
And
To try and go to the wastes to find the witch to see if she can get the curse reversed or something.
Yeah. So she goes out into the wastes with her straw hat, and she's on her way. She realizes being old is hard,
Mhm.
and she needs a walking stick. So she looks around and she sees a stick
Just kind of
sticking out of a bush.
Out of a bush.
So she goes to get the stick, and as she pulls it out, it turns out it's a scarecrow. And not only is it a scarecrow, but it's a living scarecrow, kind of.
like a magic living scarecrow. Maybe.
Yeah.
Sort of hops around.
He just hops around, and
She's
she
like,
names it Turnip Head because it has a turnip head.
It's like, I never liked turnips.
Yeah.
But
And-
then she's initially like, "Shoo, go away! I helped you, go away." And then it's like, "No, I'm gonna help you out." So he gets her
Mhm.
like a cane, and she's like, "Oh, well, thank you very much."
hmm So anyway, she gets a cane from him.
Turnip
He's
Head.
very helpful scarecrow.
Mhm.
And she's walking, and starts getting late and cold, and
Because she's in the mountains.
she needs to find a place to stay. So she has a scarecrow go find her a place to stay. So later he comes back with a giant moving castle,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, "You fool! That's Howl's castle. I can't go in there." And then all of a sudden she
Decides she needs to because it's getting dark and
Yeah.
it's raining.
she's
So,
like, "Okay,
never
I guess
mind.
I don't have any better choice." So she goes into the castle, and it's an absolute. Walks into this small room. It doesn't even feel like a castle. It's just like
It
a
was like a
cottage.
hearth, and then there's
Mhm.
just a bunch of books and
just a mess.
papers and just all sorts of mess going
Yeah.
on in there.
very, very messy. So she sits down. By
Throws
the
a log
fire.
on the fire.
Yeah, throws a log on the fire, and then the fire talks to her. And she's like, "Oh, a talking fire. Hello." And then they get to talking, and so the talking fire's name is Calcifer, and he's a fire demon who's enslaved essentially by Howl.
Yeah, he's bound to
He's
Howl
bound to Howl.
by a
Yeah.
curse.
He
So
he's kind of like the heart at the engine of
Mhm.
the castle. So he's like heating all the water and running all the steam
Machinery.
powered machinery.
yeah, and he moves the castle.
Yeah.
So it's all him who does it.
Being a the kind of being he is, he senses the curse on her, and he's like, "Oh, you're cursed. Let's
Billy
help each other
Crystal.
out here."
Yeah, so they make a deal to help each other
It's
lift
like-
each other's curses,
Mhm.
basically. So then she falls asleep. Next morning, little boy shows up. Well, comes downstairs and sees her. And
It's like, how'd you get in here?
What? How did an old lady get in here? Yeah. And so he's like, whatever. Goes to the door, or like the doorbell rings or something, and
Turns a dial.
he turns a dial, which there's like 4 different colors on the dial next to the door, and each color is a different town
So like
or
one
spot.
one dial will open the door to the moving castle. One dial will open their shop in one town and their shop in another town, because Howl is like goes by multiple aliases
Yeah.
as like the local wizard who will sell people spells and potions to
And
help
this
with their little
door
things.
is like a portal to these different locations.
Yep. So the door is a magic door. Imagine that.
A lot of things in this movie are magic, actually.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Movie about wizards.
What next? So she wakes up, talks with the boy. They kind of just strike up a deal, and
He tells her about Howl
yeah,
a little
and
bit. And she's like,
he's-
I'll be the cleaning lady.
yeah, the little boy, he's Howl's apprentice basically. And he poses as an old man with his magic at the shop when people want to buy potions and stuff. And so Sophie decides to pretend to be the new cleaning lady so that Howl doesn't suspect anything, because Howl, why would he suspect some random old lady who just showed up is all of a sudden his cleaning lady?
By the way, Howl happens to be the blonde guy who helped Sophie out earlier when
Right.
she wasn't an old lady.
Right.
So
she
plot twist, but kind of not
she didn't
actually.
realize
Dun, dun, dun.
that she figured that the guy who helped her was Howl,
But this confirms it.
but now she knows for sure that it was Howl. But now he looks she looks different, so he doesn't know that she's the same person.
yeah.
Anyway, so she cleans up the place, makes them breakfast, they become friends and stuff. Then
she
what?
goes to work on the
During
house.
the sequence where we're introduced to the portal door, the king's soldiers come with a letter for Howl, all of his various aliases.
Oh yeah.
And is like, hey, Mr. Pendragon and Mr. whatever his other name was, we've got the king wants to summon you to have his
I think it was
head
Jenkins or
mage
something.
talk to you or whatever.
Yeah. His two aliases are being summoned by the king to fight in a war that Howl doesn't actually believe in. So that's why he has multiple aliases, so that he can't be found, essentially.
Yep.
He's kind of hiding from the head of the magical, like the head mage of the king.
Yeah. Solomon. Madam Solomon.
And Sophie goes to work on the house and cleans everything out.
Yep.
And much to the chagrin of its occupants, because she's just like, nope, this is too much of a mess. I need to really get
Throwing
aggressive.
off the natural order of things.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
organized chaos.
Three bachelors in a house.
But she makes it look very nice in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So some more context. The kingdom that Sophie lives in is at war with another kingdom, and they're using they're recruiting all the wizards and witches in the areas to help fight in this war. And Howl doesn't believe in the war. He sees that it's just pointless and meaningless, and it's just causing a lot of more destruction than it needs to be. Well, it doesn't need to be at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's the fourth dial on the door is this black dial, which we find out later is a dial to
The battlefield.
the battlefields. And so no one's allowed to go through the door except for Howl. And so whenever he's always going in and out of the black dial, and it's very, very mysterious, which turns out to be the battlefields. He's going out and just sabotaging both sides of the war. What
Trying
next?
to prevent destruction.
Yeah. What's next?
I think the
important
next
plot
major
point?
thing that happens is Howl has a meltdown, quite literally.
Oh yeah.
Because she rearranges. He likes to, when he comes back from the war, he likes to take baths and stuff, and she rearranged his potions and stuff that make him look like a pretty boy.
Yeah.
And it restores his normal hair color, and he gets all depressed and starts spazzing out. And she's
Yeah.
like, "All right, sort your stuff out." and
He's
stuff.
not an actual blonde. He uses magic hair dye that makes his hair blonde, and then so his hair's black now, and
he's all depressed.
He's
'cause
depressed,
like,
and he
if-
starts oozing
weird.
ooze.
Yeah, weird goo
He just starts oozing, and it's green goo,
and stuff starts getting weird in the house.
yeah, like demon shadows.
It's like, oh
just
yeah, he's
all
having
across
a tantrum.
the doors
because he's
and
not
stuff.
pretty anymore, and he's
Mhm.
all torn up
His
about not
apprentice
being
is like,
pretty.
yeah, he did this once before when he ditched a girl, or a girl ditched
A girl
him.
dumped him.
Yeah.
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 And so Sophie's like, at first she's like, oh, screw this. And then she's like, okay, whatever, I'll help this guy out.
So
So speaking of girls that dumped him, so backstory on the Witch of the Waste and Howl. So it turns out that before, Howl used to date the Witch of the Waste, And
So she's been chasing after him.
Because she's like this very large blob-like woman
yes.
who uses potions to make herself look somewhat presentable.
Yeah. She's actually very, very old.
Very, very old. And
but
very,
she uses
very fat.
her magic to make her young-ish.
Yeah.
Because she's so old
Vain
that
and,
even being young still looks old. But before when she was in love with Howl, she looked very young, assumedly. And so when Howl found out that she was actually old and ugly, he dumped her. And so now she's got a grudge on him, and she wants to steal his heart, literally.
Which is who the blob creatures with hats, those are her minions.
Yeah, those blob creatures are her
Or no,
minions.
or
and we
were
find
those...
out
oh yeah, they were hers.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
They're the ones carrying her little trolley
we
around.
find out that somehow because of the curse, Calcifer and Howl are
They're connected.
So if one of them dies, so will the other one.
Yeah.
So they have to keep the fire burning and the castle moving.
Right. Yeah. So, next.
See, after his meltdown, she talks to him, and she's like, "Oh, by the way, you got 2 different letters to go see the king." And he's like, "But I don't want to go.
No, you.
No, you."
No,
He's
you.
like, "You're
old,
being."
you can pretend to be my mom.
And tell them that I'm lame and won't show up
Yeah.
because I'm too lame and won't show up to tell them myself.
Yeah. So he has a master plan to have her go to see Solomon, the sorceress, the king's sorceress, and represent Mrs. Pendragon, which is
He's like, I'll follow along.
Pendragon's
in
mother.
disguise.
And then he follows along in disguise, audible air quotes, and she doesn't know what he's going to be disguised as, and eventually this little dog shows up while she's on her way to the castle.
And she just
And
sort
she's
of
like,
assumes it's him.
You're a dog. That's not very good disguise. And so then she's walking, it's following her, and there's this whole scene with her going up the stairs.
Not quite yet, because on the way to the
Witch of
castle,
Waste, who's also been summoned.
The
Wait,
Witch of the Waste has also been summoned to the castle, and so they're just kind of walking
She's
side
like,
by side.
you set this curse on me. She's like, not a huge fan of you. And then they have to climb this. The minions are sort of carrying her in like this litter kind of thing, but then like there's some sort of spell which prevents them from going any further, so she has to actually climb the stairs.
The Witch of the Waste, by the way.
And the palace has like this long flight of stairs to get to the top, and there's all these guards just sitting there
and so
watching them climb.
Sophie's old, the Witch of the Waste is fat, and so neither of them go up the stairs particularly fast.
Yep. And they can't help. The guards can't help. There's like a bunch of guards on the stair, but they can't help because it's not their
Against the rules
job
or something.
And Sophie also has to carry this dog up because the dog is kind of old and sick too.
And the dog is just has really stumpy legs.
Yeah.
That's what it
It
is.
just can't make
He
it
has
up the
like
stairs.
chicken legs. It's
Yeah.
It's a little
weird.
looking, yeah.
It's like
So
Alright.
Sophie, even though she's an old woman, she still gets up the stairs faster than
With the dog.
with a dog
faster than the Witch of the Waste.
because I guess she's incredibly
She's
old.
so old and fat. And then so they both get up to the top of the stairs, and then there's one chair in the first room they walk in. And immediately the Witch of the Waste is like,
I'm gonna sit
chair! I'm going to go sit in the chair. It's mine.
And then this page takes Sophie's like, hey, let's go over here. And so while the Witch of the Waste is sitting alone in this room, all these curtains pop up and these light bulbs show up, and then
Edison bulbs.
and then they just shine on her, and then she, like, for somehow whatever, the head sorceress lady set up this trap to take away the Witch of the Waste's powers.
Yep.
Because she's been using them so irresponsibly and meanly that she kind of tricked her into coming in
Yep.
and sucking her powers up. So now she's just like this tiny old woman.
Yeah.
Now they go to Solomon, who's like the head sorceress lady.
Yep.
And then Sophie does her routine like, I'm Pendragon's mom, Mrs. Pendragon.
Audible air quotes. I'm his mom.
He's so lazy and useless he won't even come up here. And the lady's like, oh, that's a shame. I know exactly who he is, and he used to be my apprentice. So, turns out he's.
And I also happen to know that you're not his mom,
Mhm.
because during the speech, while she's defending Howl for not coming and not
Yeah.
believing in the war, she slowly she de-ages. She goes back
Yeah.
to her regular age and form while she's going on this rant about how Howl's actually a good person
And
who
I think
cares.
we've also seen a couple shots of her, like when she's sleeping, she's in her younger.
Yeah.
Right. So there's she's
There's
kind
something
of
going on with her curse.
right, sliding back and forth a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the sorceress lady's like, "Oh, so you're in love with him then?"
Yeah.
And that's kind of the moment where she realizes, like, okay, this is an act. She's like, this guy's super powerful, and if he loses his heart, he can turn out to be incredibly dangerous. So that's why I tried to get him here, so I could put a stop to that.
Just like the Witch of the Wastes over here,
Yep.
who has now been reduced to just like
A
a
senile old lady.
quiet old lady
Mhm.
who's being carted around.
Yeah.
In like a little wheelbarrow.
And then the king shows up and he's like, "Hey, sup?" And then another king, the king comes in, and she's like, "Oh, hey there, Hal," because Hal had come in with a disguised himself
Yeah,
as the
no,
king.
the king. So first the king comes in and he starts talking with Solomon, and then the king comes in from the other door and he says, "Hey, Solomon, that's a great duplicate of me. Good job," and then leaves.
And he's like, "All right, we got to blow up some more cities." And then
Yep.
goes out the room.
and then Solomon's like, that was a clever disguise until just now, Howl.
Mm-hmm.
And then he reveals himself.
And then they
Howl's
run away.
disguise wasn't the dog, by the way. It
Right.
was
Yeah.
the king.
The
dog was
dog
just a
works for
little-
Solomon.
Yeah.
He's just kind of her little servant dog.
Yep.
Not really evil, just kind of does his thing.
He's just the dog,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes.
Instead of barking. 'cause
He
he's
just
old.
wheezes.
He just wheezes.
Wheezy dog.
And then
So now that Howl's here, Solomon springs a trap to
Yep.
sap his powers,
Mhm.
but with the help of Sophie, they get away. But also Sophie drags along the Witch of the Wastes and the little wheezy dog
for reasons,
because they're
Yeah.
just hanging on to
because
her
she's
leg
just
at the time.
nice.
Yeah.
too.
She kind of just is nice,
So they jump on a plane and fly away.
like a hummingbird plane.
Yeah.
It's
like-
just
And
has
then
flappy
the-
wings.
Yeah.
then
Audible flappy wings.
Hal gives her this ring, like, "Hey, use this to get home," and so they do. And
It's got a little.
he goes off and does his thing to keep them safe or whatever, and so they crash land on the castle and get back in there and whatnot.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So they're back at the castle after this big chase scene. And well, Howl isn't back at the castle though.
Not yet.
He was diverting the others.
Right, because there's a bunch of soldiers and hummingbird planes that were chasing them.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and so
So like Howl
Sophie
turns them
could get back
invisible and
safely.
creates an illusion of the plane, and so they split up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's this whole
Um,
thing.
Also, at this point, Howl realizes that Sophie isn't an old woman, and that she just has a curse on herself.
Mhm.
And recognizes her as like the girl he had rescued, I think.
Yeah, because one day when he came in late, Sophie was sleeping and she was a young girl, and he saw that.
He's like, "Okay, I get it." Also, we've been sort of seeing from Hal, he's like sort of this weird bird monster when he's out fighting in the
Yeah,
war.
so he has special powers that he uses when he's fighting. He turns into this bird, basically,
But
and
if he goes too hard, then he'll turn into a bird and never be able to
Yeah.
turn back into a
he'll
human.
be bird forever.
Because
and
there's these
lose
other
his
wizards
humanity.
that he fights with who went too far and now they're stuck as monsters.
Yeah, there's a bunch of monsters with top hats, which used to be wizards or whatever.
I love how everything wears hats.
Yeah.
Like, all the henchman creatures all wear hats.
I think that the theme is just hats.
Actually, there's something I want to point out about hats at the end of the movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Discussion.
All right. What next?
Well, now that they're on the run from Solomon,
Yeah.
so they start running the castle away. They do a thing where they change the houses that the
Yeah.
castle is connected to.
Because,
Oh, yeah.
Because Solomon's minions are after them, so they have to change the portal houses, which turn out are just empty buildings that they had repurposed.
Yep.
And so they change where it's at, and it's kind of remarkably similar to. It's in the same town and remarkably similar to the old hat shop that Sophie had worked at.
Mhm.
Yep.
They're like, okay, this is where y'all are gonna live. Is what?
No, it was the hat shop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He just like said, "This is the hat shop now."
Yeah.
So Hal's like, "So this is where you're gonna live," and then he's like, "Oh, by the way, this other portal goes to my hideout in the mountains. I hope you like it." And she's like, "Wait, you're not gonna go off and die, are you?" And she's like, "No, I want you to have a life." It's like, "You're not. No, you're not doing that."
I'm not gonna let you do that. That's
He's like, "Sorry, I'm gonna do it.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go
do it.
die.
I'm gonna go die." But so the war kind of comes to the town, and these machines are bombing the place, and they're all in danger. And Hal's like, "All right, well, I'm gonna go fight and die." And she's like, "Crap, we got to move the castle so he stops defending the flower shop."
Yeah, because that's where
He's like, "I love you. I want to protect all of you."
yeah, her hometown is being bombed by the other kingdoms. Bombs? Anyway, her hometown's being bombed by the enemy kingdom,
Yep.
and in order to save Sophie, he's working really hard not to let her die. So he's
in danger of getting stuck as the
Right.
monster man.
in danger of becoming bird forever.
Yep.
Right. So they disconnect the castle from the other houses by removing Calcifer from the house, so it's like collapses and
collapses
dies,
because
so
the
that
power
all the power is gone.
Holding it up, and then they realize, oh crap, Calcifer, the source of his flame is Howl's heart, like literal heart.
Yep.
And so because old lady Witch of the Wastes is like, ooh, look, his heart, I want to have his heart forever, so she steals it. And then all the power to the house is shut off because Calcifer is cut off from the house. And
Well, then she's like burning up because it's fire,
yep,
Yeah.
and so Sophie throws a bucket of water on her, which it
sort of smothers
Calcifer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the fire boy.
Um.
And she goes on this sort of dream sequence thing.
Well, she gets separated from the other guys because the house breaks apart because
It
the
goes through
power
a door
source is removed,
into
this whole thing.
Howl's childhood, where she figures out how his heart got caught up with Calcifer in the first place. It was like this weird shooting star he swallowed, and then it turned out to be the fire demon or whatever. And so she's like, "Oh, I know how to help him now." So they get Howl back, and she sticks his heart back in him, and then
Yeah. Important point to when so we're at near the end of the movie.
she's not
There's-
an old woman anymore.
She goes back in time through this magic door that allows her to see Howl's past and where he got his power, and then he sees the origins of where Calcifer came from. He turns out to be a star that he caught. He was like a dying star, and so he made a deal with Calcifer when he was young. I will save your life if you give me power. And then he eats him. And then he comes out of his chest as a flame with his heart. So that's why they're tied together. So Howl has more power because of Calcifer, and Calcifer is not dead because of Howl.
Yep.
And so now she knows how to free them both of their curses. So she wishes. She's holding Calcifer, and meanwhile Howl is now. So they're back in the regular real time.
Right, everyone's reunited in real time now.
Yep. And so Howl's laying there almost dead, and she picks up Calcifer and makes a wish for them both to be able to live without the other one. And so then she takes Calcifer, puts him back in, just pushes him into
Pushes the heart through his chest.
and then because magic, and then
Comes back to life.
Both survive. They come
both
back to
of
life.
them come back to life, and Calcifer is a star again, and he can live, and he whooshes away. Later he comes back because he actually likes them.
And it's going to rain.
Yeah.
And then they rebuild a new moving castle, and
Right.
then
There was one other important bit. So,
Okay.
like they're on the remains of the floating cat or
Oh, yeah.
the moving castle.
Scarecrow Boy's
And-
been following them around.
Yeah,
and
like
helping
Turnip Head has just been a consistent character who will show up from time to time and be just the most charming.
and helpful.
Yep.
Scarecrow ever. Hopping
So
around.
anyway, there's like one point when the thing's falling apart where like they're sliding down the side of the mountain because now Calcifer has like left and is untied from the house. So like the house that's standing, like because it's still got like 2 legs that they're standing on this piece of floor, but it starts sliding down the mountain now that Calcifer's gone.
Yep.
But then Scarecrow Boy shows up and stops the descent down the mountain by like sticking his stick into the ground and like acting as a brake. And Sophie's all like, "You were so brave and helpful. Thank you, Turnip Head," and gives him a little kiss. And turns out he was actually a cursed prince who was like, "Oh, I needed a kiss from my true love to turn me back to a prince."
But it turns out his true love
wasn't. Yeah, had somebody else, and he's like, "Yeah, that's okay. I love you enough to let you go."
It turns out they started a war because I went missing. I was like, "Oh crap!"
Yeah. So we find out that the whole war in the first place was started because the neighboring kingdom's prince went missing, and they blamed each other, and then they went to war because of it, because of the missing prince. So now turns out, it's Turnip Head.
And they all live happily ever after. They build a new moving castle. Howl and Sophie are in love, and at the end.
Yeah,
because
and she's not an old woman anymore.
Yeah, basically she's kind of broken her curse or found a way to.
And she wears pretty hats now.
Yeah.
Yes, that's actually the point I wanted to bring up.
It's the hat, man.
So now we've done the whole.
That was
story.
Quite the synopsis.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was hefty. We probably could have made it more concise, but hey, this is the podcast, folks.
Okay, here's the deal, though. There is a lot going on in this movie. I'm surprised I remembered as much as I did.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I didn't watch it an hour ago.
Yeah.
we literally watched it for the first time an hour ago.
The credits were rolling, and I was just like, okay, so I think I know what happened. But I'm not entirely sure.
We didn't cover absolutely everything.
No, there's some minor details.
But I think the reason for that, is because I've seen a couple of Studio Ghibli films.
I've never seen one until now.
And they have this very laid-back style. They don't like to take their time. They like to build this just charming world and atmosphere, and just sit in it for a while. So there's a lot of quiet moments of them just kind of in the castle
and then
observing the landscape, just like, nature's pretty.
There's a slow build, and then all sorts of stuff starts happening.
Right.
You're just like, what is going on?
But no, the hat point is that I wanted to bring up that I noticed for the entire movie. Sophie is a character.
She's a character.
Yes, she is a character. She's also a girl.
She's also the main character.
She's actually the main character.
Also a girl.
So Sophie, as a character, isn't particularly comfortable with herself. She doesn't see herself as pretty, and she outwardly expresses that by dressing as plainly as possible, with very plain dresses and the simple little hat.
And when she gets turned into an old woman, she's like, well, at least my clothes suit me now.
Right.
Yeah.
So she just she constantly holds on to this plain hat she wears. But over the course of the movie, she gets more comfortable with herself and just kind of accepts herself for who she is. And
she's just very kind to other people.
The more kind she is to people, and the less she's self-conscious about herself, the less she starts to look like an old woman. So for scenes at a time, she'll just slowly de-age, start as an old woman, but then next time you see her, she looks more like 40.
She starts out bent over, and then over time she starts standing up straight and looking younger and younger. I mean, at the end of the movie, she still has her white hair, but she's fully a young woman again.
Yeah, she's just a young lady with white hair instead of brown hair.
Brown.
Right. But in the last shot of the movie, when she's on the balcony of the flying castle with Howl, she's got this really
pretty hat
and this pretty dress, and it's hey, she's accepted her inner beauty. That's a character symbolism arc she went through.
Yeah. In the book, I've only read the first chapter so far.
Keep going.
But in the book, they focus on that right away. They show, so the narrator's all three, so she's the eldest of 3 girls, and they're all very pretty, and they all had a very, very happy life. They were rich and happy and stuff. And the narrator talks about how Sophie wasn't is a very pretty girl, and she just doesn't
Right. She doesn't see herself as
see
such.
herself as that. Should we move on to transcendentals? I feel like what we're about to talk
we're
about.
still
I think
talking
there's
about
more-
what we like about the movie.
There's more
Sure.
cool stuff to say about the movie
okay.
and things to talk about because
What did I like?
I don't know. What did you like? Why did you make us watch this movie to talk
well,
about it
continue
in the
the thought
podcast?
you were on just
Anyway, I really liked.
with the book. Like you were making the point the three daughters.
Oh no, that was the point.
The point was they're all pretty, but she doesn't think so.
Yeah,
Ah, gotcha.
and she talks about that right away.
Well, and her sister in the movie is like, you could do stuff with yourself. Like you could live like your own life. You don't have to live in the old flower shop. She's like, no, I just prefer to sit in the back and sew hats all day by
Yeah,
myself.
and her little sister is, like when she goes to the cake shop to see her sister's running the cake shop, and there's 100,000 people in the building. Not literally, there's
Right.
a bunch of people in the building, mostly all guys, who are trying to get her to wait on them because they just want to marry her.
Yeah.
Because she gets like 100 marriage proposals, like just from when she first starts working there,
Mm-hmm.
or at least in the book.
In the book. And it's very much portrayed in the movie by just like how much attention she's getting at the front counter when she goes to talk
She
to
sort
her
of has
sister.
to like peel herself away so she can talk to her sister for a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um.
So yeah, that's kind of Sophie's character learning this. That also she kind of becomes very she becomes a family with the rest of the characters she
Yeah.
meets with.
And like the little kid, what's his name?
Marcus.
Marcos or whatever.
Merkel.
That kid. He at first he's like, this old granny, and then later on he's just like, nah. She's like, I love you, don't leave.
Yeah.
And then like the dog is just kind of there. Even the Witch of the Waste is just kind of like the grandma in the corner for some
Yeah.
reason.
After the
Because
whole incident
she doesn't know how to reverse her curse on
right.
Sophie, but so it's just they end up figuring
But
it out.
after
I
she
guess.
gets her powers drained away from her, and she's just kind of old and senile, and just like constantly, oh, what a pretty fire,
yeah.
Yeah.
Although
she's
like
just
every
super, all of a sudden, just super.
super mild
Nice
and just
and
super
mild.
meek. She's not nice per se, but
Well, yeah.
Sophie's now nicer to her, and she's like slowly warms up to that.
Yeah.
Well,
like-
and then the other thing too is like because she's holding on to Howl's heart, and she's like has to talk her into letting go of him so that he can live.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She's like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. At first, when I first saw the movie, and she like got her powers taken away, I thought she was just senile and didn't remember who she was. But then later, she switches between senile and I know who I am,
And
I just don't have
being
any
sneaky
powers.
and cunning.
Yeah. And she's like, there's one point where she's smoking a cigar.
After there's like a thing where the head mage sent her Sophie's mom to visit as like a spy to leave like
stuff
a
on
shadow bug, and like in
and
her mom's
like a
purse was like a
cigar.
shadow bug thing that
cigar, which the
and a
smoke
cigar.
will smother
Calcifer.
Calcifer, yeah.
Yeah.
so. And she's just kind of sitting in the corner, just smoking.
It's like,
while bombs are raining outside.
leave an old
she's
woman
like,
to her.
This is exciting.
But yeah.
But it was interesting how the Witch of the Wastes eventually like softened and became a character that was a lot more. I don't know. She wasn't like mean because she couldn't do anything about it anymore.
Yeah.
So she was very just kind of.
She's in for the ride.
She was in for the ride, but then like the way that everyone just kind of accepted her, she felt like oh, this is
These people are nice.
these people can be nice to me. I don't have to be mean to everybody because people can be nice.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah.
I guess now we can move into the transcendental analysis.
Are we done talking about just cool stuff about the movie, or are we
We're
reaching
gonna keep
just the
talking
time?
about cool stuff about the movie.
I guess.
About the money.
Because like if we don't want to get to the transcendentals, be like, oh crap, we already talked about everything.
Sure.
So I guess truth. What sort of truths can we pull from this movie?
My first thought on that is the truth of basically the whole theme of the movie is kind of the theme on self esteem for the most part.
Like all of the three main characters, Sophie, Howl, and the Witch of the Wastes.
None of them feel good enough in themselves.
All of them have issues with beauty, right? The Witch of the Wastes uses potions to keep herself looking young and beautiful.
Yeah.
Howl is very obsessed with looking like
fly.
Pretty fly for a bird guy.
He dyes his hair.
Yeah, he dyes his hair, and but he's also like covering up the fact that he's a monster and doesn't want other people to see him as the monster he's slowly turning into completely.
Yeah.
And then you've got Sophie and her total just lack of self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
She already felt like she looked like an old lady to begin with, so it's almost like the curse.
Like confirmation.
It's like the curse reflected how she felt about herself.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then there's sort of a development too, where like Sophie, I think, it's implied that she realizes, like, at first she's like, if I ever get my hands on that Witch of the Waste, I'm gonna wring her neck. But then, like, over the course of the movie, she realizes she's like the curse is almost coming from her opinion of herself.
Oh yeah, I want to touch on that. So one of the things,
audible touch.
One of the things that is confusing in the movie is, so they never really explain how she breaks her curse. But as you see throughout the movie, she just kind of
rolls back and forth between
she goes between being young and old more and more throughout the movie, because it turns out that her curse is tied to her self-esteem. Like, she looks the way she sees herself inwardly, and that's the curse.
And it's like when, like in the scene when Howl is when they're in the garden with Howl and he's about to leave, and she's with him in the garden, and she's feeling all pretty, like, oh, you gave all this to me. She's like,
because he's kind of falling in love with her,
right? So she's very like. She's very young in that
sees herself
scene.
Through his eyes.
But then as he's about to leave her with to just kind of live with everyone else and go sacrifice himself, he's like, well, maybe I'm not good enough for you, and reverts back to the old lady right before going back to before stuff hits the fan. So anyway, that was the point I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's this
understanding who you are, because like with Sophie especially, like, she's already like a pretty beautiful person inside and outside. Like, she, like, over the course of the movie, like through her acts of kindness and then finding love, she learns how to love herself and love others more throughout the movie, and that's sort of visually represented in how she kind of transforms back to her youthful self.
Yeah,
but with a different hair color, which I guess can sort of like that.
I think it's
still that part of her
because her curse isn't quote unquote broken, but she still has the curse. But since the curse is she looks outwardly the way she feels inwardly, now that she's confident about herself, she looks young because that's how she feels.
Yeah, and then Howl, over the course of the movie, like, he's sort of running away from his problems, and then because of her, he's like,
he slowly turns to face them.
Yeah, he's now I have something to fight for. I want to protect you,
because he was constantly hiding and covering up what he was and what he was doing and what he thought and how he felt and all this stuff. Because he was a sad boy who was rejected, and didn't believe in.
And he was about ready to let himself just turn into the monster, and then she saves him from that.
Well, at first he was about ready to turn into the monster because he didn't care anymore. But then he was willing to turn into the monster because he cared.
Yeah.
And then he didn't have to because they broke the curse.
Yep. What else are some truths that we can? War, I guess, is sort of like the backdrop of the movie.
And war in general is treated as very bad.
Yeah.
They're in the garden and they see the warship flying in the air, and she's like, is it one of ours or one of theirs? And he's like, does it really matter? They both bomb people.
Yeah.
They're both bad. There's
sort of this interesting contrast because at the beginning of the movie you see and maybe this will be more on the beauty standpoint, I don't know, but you see how it sort of contrasts like the beauty of nature, and like even though they live in like this city with like steam machines and stuff like that, the sky is very bright and blue, like the countryside is really pretty, and sort of there's this emphasis on nature, and then as the war progresses, that stuff gets burnt up. Bombs and bombs. And like Howl's hideaway is like in this beautiful mountain valley.
But even that gets
there's like a warship flies over it, and
the war comes there.
Interesting stuff. Any more truths? I guess war is awful and destructive.
And this particular war was kind of pointless, and
I guess there's sort of like there's no limit to who you can be kind to.
Yeah,
because like
because Sophie learns to love her enemies in this movie.
Yeah,
like the Witch of the Waste, like she ends up taking care of her.
Basically.
Yeah, which is sort of an interesting, like she just can't help herself.
Right.
Cool. Goodness. I suppose that's sort of a segue into the goodness.
Yeah.
Love your enemies.
Yeah.
Goodness. I don't know. The whole movie just makes you feel good.
Yeah.
For the most part.
That leans more into the beauty side of things. But yeah,
it has this wholesome aura about it.
It does. As Miyazaki films tend to do.
It feels like you're watching the experience of reading a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cozily reading a book by the fire is sort of the experience of watching this movie.
And there's like the family element to the group.
Yeah.
Where over the course of the film, you get this ragtag group of weirdos. You got the kid with the beard disguise. You got the little fire
demon,
demon Mike Wazowski,
which is I don't know, it's a demon, but it's not like an evil spirit.
It's like more of a Japanese understanding of demon, where it's like
some sort of magic sprite, basically.
Yeah, where Oni and yokai and stuff like that in Japanese mythology is like more translated as like fairies and sprites and spirits in general. It's kind of, they have a different understanding of it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's I don't know how they're referred to as in the book, which I don't think was written.
Which the thing is, like, the book isn't Japanese, but the movie is.
Right, because it was Studio Ghibli.
Yeah. One thing, I guess, is this strictly, is it anime?
Yeah.
It is, but it's not, though.
It's not.
Well,
it's an animated thing from Japan.
True.
That is like the only definition of anime.
I guess some of the goodness in that is sort of stays out of the weird waifu stuff.
Well, again, it's Miyazaki.
It's very wholesome.
That's
a good thing.
He's a wholesome boy. I honestly, after this, I'm like, I could watch A Princess Mononoke and Totoro again. Those are good.
I haven't seen those yet.
Beauty. There's a lot to say for beauty in this film.
The
score is great. The movie is like it has sort of this China paint, no, not China. It's got like this sort of like really pretty painting in your grandma's kitchen that you like to stare at.
You could like take any frame from this film and just hang it up on a wall, and it's just like be aesthetic. It's very aesthetic.
Drawn.
Yeah,
the animation is pretty awesome.
In general,
sound design.
Studio Ghibli films have this very soft quality to them. The animation is like very fluid. The character designs are very round and appealing and soft. The color palette is just very warm and pleasant.
There isn't a lot of spiky hair.
Yeah.
No.
The storytelling, like the visual storytelling the movie does is really cool too. Like, because there's like the opening establishing shots in the beginning of the movie where you just see these scenes from the town, and then when the moving castle portal gets moved to her shop in the city, she looks out and sees like it's basically shot for shot the same thing as the opening sequence, so it sort of represents her like realizing, oh, this is my hometown,
this is where I started from.
Yeah. And so it's like there's all sorts of those throughout the movie. I also really appreciated like the sound design in the movie, and all those sorts of things. It's just very beautifully constructed,
and the pace of the film, like for the first half of it, is in no hurry. It just kind of rests on scenery and just an old lady walking up a mountain.
Well, every now and again, she'll just sit down. It's like, there's something about being an old woman where you just like to sit and stare off into the beauty of nature like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like you could just kind of sit with her, like, yeah, this is good.
You got bouncing scarecrow boy in the background.
Yeah.
Boing, boing, boing.
I wonder now. This is an aside, but I wonder if like that sort of artistic mindset didn't sort of come out a little bit, and like when they made Breath of the Wild, it had like a sort of similar, I don't know, feel that way.
Again,
where like every now and again the game is like, yeah, why don't you just take in the
Basically, Princess Mononoke is the closest thing we'll get to a Zelda movie.
Oh, okay. All right.
I guess
But yeah, I mean, like that artistic mindset, like
Right,
that's about
but
all there is in common. But like, that attitude of like, why don't you just sit and take in the scenery for a little bit, kind of attitude. And that's what this movie
stop
does
and
a lot.
smell the roses, and it's like,
Yeah,
these nice smelly roses.
a very beautiful film.
On the opposite side, my thoughts on the animation. I love it. I love just that style of
Very much hand
art, just animation and drawing. I love movies like that, especially because they're usually the older ones where they hand draw everything.
Yeah,
It's just they know how to make things beautiful when they're supposed to be beautiful, but they also know how to make things scary when they're supposed to be scary. Because like movies just don't do that anymore these days. Like making things authentically scary. Like when I was a kid,
lots
like
of stuff was
and a lot of the Studio Ghibli stuff, I couldn't watch it because I would get like the first time I ever watched like Spirited Away when I was a kid.
That gets weird in the middle with
I
No
got
Faces transformation.
I got so scared.
It's like weird, like sort of dream sequence like stuff like that happens, and like really like sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Abstract portions of the movie when you're a kid, like you don't get it, and it's sort of like weirds you out a little bit. You don't know what to like. It scares you a little bit, and then there's like stuff that's supposed to be scary in the movie, like the blob creatures. I'm sure, probably.
But they all had little hats.
Yeah, they all have little hats.
Most funny.
But it's like something you
So
appreciate better as an adult
Yeah,
because you can process those.
I want to
better.
touch specifically like on Howl's bird form. Like,
Oh, yeah.
that's scary. Like the
Yeah.
the way the feathers just look so sharp, like they would cut you if you touched them.
Mm-hmm.
And like in that dream sequence when she goes into the Howl's room and it's a cave, and then she finds Howl as a full-on monster, and he just like got big fangs from the side.
It's like, I'm Batman.
Yeah,
This is
and you
who
don't
you'll
get to
become.
see all of him, and that's what really makes things scary is like when you don't get to see it.
And even just like the weirdness of when at the end of the movie when he's in his bird form, his face is like
The
on
only
the end
thing
of like a
left.
very long neck attached to the bird.
Yeah.
Where it's like in this clump of feathers, and she opens it up and she kisses it on his cheek. It's like, hey, let's go find
He's not even completely
Calcifer.
conscious
And then
anymore.
like the face extends,
Yeah.
and there's just like this long neck of feathers.
Yeah. And
he's like got
bleeding,
one
too.
leg, and it's this. Oh, that's
Once
that's
she like
weird,
picks up the
man.
feathers and they sort of crumble into dust, all weird like.
Yeah,
It's like,
and then like this movie I don't think is for kids, at least not young kids. But like, cause like when she grabs onto when he's stuck in the bird form and then he picks her up with the leg. He's just like standing on one leg, and then he's bleeding at the same time. There's like drops of blood. It's just like they know how to make things look scary. And
it's like you realize
like that's a monster.
you realize like what's at stake for him, like why she's like determined to save him
Yeah.
from.
And then, like when they do the spell to change the house portal, and then like Calcifer blows up into like
Yeah, she's
full on
like,
fire demon.
It's
full
interesting he
mode.
uses chalk as like sort of like the transmutation circle or whatever to like move them around.
Oh yeah.
And he's Calcifer is the name of the fire guy.
Fire demon.
So he got calcium. I don't know. Maybe that was intentional.
I think I was under the impression it would have started with a K.
Huh? Calcifer?
I don't know.
Calcium carbonate?
I don't know.
I don't.
Anyway, just a little something I picked up on.
Calcifer just sounds like a fiery name to me.
Right.
It's like sounds like sulfur and Lucifer.
Calcium.
So fire demon.
Calcium, Lucifer. Calcifer.
Calcium is incredibly inert. But anyway.
I said sulfur, but
Right.
anyway.
No one cares.
No one cares what I think.
So yeah, that's so there's a lot to say for the beauty of this movie. It's definitely an experience.
It is
to watch.
pleasing on the eyes and on the soul.
Until the scary parts.
Till the scary parts. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, that's freaky.
If you want
But
a crash course in how you can represent things in a movie through visual storytelling, definitely watch this.
This is very much a show don't tell sort of movie.
Yes,
and
I
I
love
love
those to
that.
death. There's one thing I like to see in movies is like, or well, in any sort of media, that as far as like how I like to consume, if something's beautiful, I think the beauty is often found in the details.
Mhm.
Which some people are like, oh, well, I thought the devil's in the details. It's like, right, the devil's in the details because that usually, I take it to mean that like if the devil's in the details, it means you overlooked something and it came back to bite you.
Yep.
But in this case, like the beauty's in the details for me because like you see all these little pieces and things that all fit together into this whole. So which brings us to unity.
Oh shoot! I forgot about that part.
Everyone does. That's why we make a point of covering it. All of like these elements, the music, the artistry, the characterization, and like the storytelling that sort of reveals those parts about the whole of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And all comes together to bring forward this very beautiful, expressive, but not formless, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
experience. And it tells a story that is
It's
much
like-
more an experience than something you just sort of.
Because the story itself is a fairly straightforward Beauty and the Beast fairy tale type of story
Yeah.
with that kind of a message.
Yeah.
But the way it's told is really subtle and really nuanced and really just charming and pleasant.
It's a lot like how like with a fanciful book, it will like stimulate your imagination and like arouse like emotions in you.
Yeah.
And I think that's like when we were talking about this story, this movie gives the impression of like you're reading a really good book. Is like I think it's sort of it captures that like from a different angle from like a movie medium instead of a book, which is kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it shows you what's going on, it still sort of sparks your imagination. It still sort of grabs your emotions.
Because this movie doesn't spend any of its time like explaining some of the details. It never explicitly states the details of any of like Sophie's curse or Howl's curse. They just kind of let you figure it out.
attention.
It trusts the viewer to be smart enough to pick up on the symbolism and the things.
So it's definitely not a movie to be mindlessly like just watched for entertainment. Like you sort of, I mean, it's not like a chore to watch, but it's like you do want to like be able to pay attention.
It invites you to participate in
Yeah.
it. It's just like sets a mood and just like, here, sit with me as we just kind of experience the story at the same time.
Mhm. Yeah, if you like to watch movies in such a way that you are like paying attention and picking up, like pick up on different things and dive deeper into it, this is a good movie for you.
Tell you what, as relaxing as this movie was, I'm glad we didn't watch it last night
Yeah, it would
because
definitely
I
fall
would have just
asleep, conked
it
out.
would have just like tucked me in and kissed me on the cheek and said goodnight.
Good
I would have
night.
been sitting really weirded out in the corner, like what is going on?
Yeah.
What is this movie doing?
The movie, it's alive.
But that's like the kind of atmosphere
Really weird.
it has,
dreams, probably if you fell asleep watching this.
Probably.
Yeah, actually.
But yeah, I guess do we have anything else we want to say about that?
Just one more thing about Unity. I wanted to say, like what we were talking about, like, the visual representations of like show don't tell. They did a really good job of tying like visual things to the theme of the story.
Yeah,
Like what you were saying about the hat, what hat she was wearing at the beginning, what hat she was wearing at the end.
her hair color,
And what age she is in any given scene, or
Yeah.
how Howl looks, how
Yeah,
much
they
of
don't
his bird form
really-
is still showing.
They don't blatantly explain how she turned young for a split second there and then turned back old. It just happens and you have to figure it out.
Right.
And it's kind of like as well, like the door. It just kind of shows you how the door works instead of saying, "Oh, this is a portal that'll take you anywhere." It's just
Right.
like she turned the dial. Oh, this opens the door, and you're
And
in this
then
place.
she plays with it and experiments with it. And it's
Yeah.
like this whole
And then when you get to the part where she goes back in time to her childhood, you're just sort of familiar. Okay, so this is a magic door. It takes you places.
Mhm.
Right.
You just sort of accept it at that point. But
there's no like at the beginnings nobody sits the character down and says, okay, this is the mechanics of the fantasy world we live
Yeah.
in.
Mhm.
It
I
just
like
kind of
that.
it's a much softer, more fairy tale magic system in this film.
Mhm.
But
I think. Sorry, you
it's-
go finish.
but I was just gonna say, but it's like logically consistent enough that you can figure out how and how it's working and what's going on.
Yeah.
The movie leaves clues for you to follow
I'm
and piece together.
a big fan of, like, I think stories today, people writing stories today, they try too hard to explain how their world works. And it's like it's not very often you see anymore like worlds where it's just like weird things happen, magic happens, but it's not like this is how it happens. It's just
takes
there.
out the
and
element of mystery.
Yeah, it's mysterious.
Right. There's a wonder and a sense of just like discovery and like, oh, that's cool.
Sometimes
As
not
opposed
knowing
to-
the limits of something is sort of like intimidating to people, but like I don't know, I kind of enjoy the type of mystery that you can keep diving into it.
Yeah, that's why I really like this and like Lord of the Rings compared to like Harry Potter. Harry Potter, they're like, this is magic. This is how magic works. In Lord
Even
of the
then,
Rings,
it's kind of
Aragon-
inconsistent in Harry Potter.
A little
let's be
bit.
real.
A little bit.
Aragon as well is very much like this is the magic system.
yeah, in Lord of the Rings, for example, like there's wizards. There's like 5 wizards in the whole lore, and in the movies / books there's only 2 really. And they like Gandalf, they don't explain his magic. He can just do things sometimes, and sometimes he's just like, I'm helpless right now.
You know him by the fruits of his actions.
Yeah.
Mhm. Because actions speak louder than words. Show don't tell.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's kind of the point we're getting to here.
Anyway,
But yeah, as I suppose if we want to tie this into play the Catholic card, like this movie sort of like the show don't tell sort of philosophy to movies kind of gives you the opportunity to dive into a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Which the mystery doesn't imply there's no answer to your questions, unlike what some people think. Like this is a mystery means you don't understand it yet, but if you dive into it and sort of contemplate it, you will start to reveal some of the truths that lie beneath. Which is a great way to consume media, I suppose, very thoughtfully and intentionally.
So if our audience wants to consume our media,
consumption.
where can they find it?
They can consume it, but you don't want to get consumption. That's the other thing too. I finished playing Red Dead Redemption 2 the other day, and
Does that game give you consumption?
your character gets consumption, dies.
Oh,
Sorry,
spoilers.
Sorry, but
We'll do an episode on that probably, maybe. I
yeah,
don't know.
definitely gonna do an episode on it. Anyway, so thanks for listening to the Palladium Papists. You can listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Palapapists. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, or suggestions for future episodes, email us at palladiumpapists@gmail.com. Ta-da!
I could
Bye.
do that.
Oh, should we have you do the outro in the future
Nah.
when you're guesting the episode?
'Cause
No.
it's been James consistently since
No,
Yeah,
that's his
we've been
thing.
doing
That's
it.
my thing.
It is very much his thing.
I'll take ownership.
Anyway.
Yes.
So long, farewell, goodbye. I should have done that last week, dang it. Was this not
Goodbye.
I referenced it.
Okay, good.
Goodbye.
Bye.